Okay, this is the last part of the syllabus that we had left out in Unit 2, if you remember. 1 second. So in Unit 2, this was the chapter left out. So I said I would be covering up at a later point of time. So let us cover to finish the syllabus. We discussed in Unit 2 a topic called IPC. If you remember, we had a discussion in the class session. IPC stands for inter-process communication. Inter-process communication. Inter-process communication. Now, in that context, we said processes are classified into two types. One is called independent processes, and the other is called cooperative processes or cooperating processes. When do you say processes independent means they do not access any shared resources. No shared resources. Whereas here cooperating processes means they access shared resources. Okay. Now, when they cooperate, they basically affect each other. They affect each other. I gave an example, if you remember and recollect in the class, I gave an example to understand what is the meaning of getting affected by each other. Scroll it down. Okay. Producer consumer problem. I gave an example of a problem called producer consumer. I'll explain it again. It is like a review, and then I will tell you what is the objective of this particular chapter. So what is producer consumer problem? If you remember and recollect, there are two types of processes, one by name producer, other by name consumer. They access a shared resource. This is called buffer, which has got a size of n. Now this buffer has got some slots. These are called slots, which are numbered 0, 1, 2 and so on. Each slot can hold some data item. Each slot can hold some data item. Okay. Now to keep track of how many items are present in the buffer, I said in the class, you can see the notes, we are maintaining a variable called count. Producer want to insert an item into the buffer. It does that by means of variable in, which indicate the next free slot address. Suppose already 2 slots are filled up. So what is the next free slot? 2. Likewise, consumer will access a variable called out. By means of out, it can access the item from the buffer. And count is at any time is going to indicate how many data items are present in the buffer. How many data items are present in the buffer will be indicated by the variable count. So count indicate number of data items. And we follow a protocol that whenever producer places a data item in the buffer, we increment count, and whenever consumer consumes a data item from the buffer, we decrement the count. So this is the meaning of cooperating processes. Producer and consumer are cooperating with each other. Producer, unless until it places the data item, consumer cannot consume. Consumer, unless and until it consumes from the data item, producer cannot produce and place the item, because this is a circular buffer. After placing the item in the last slot, we go back and try to fill up. It's a continuous, infinite process. They run infinitely. Okay, infinitely they run and do the cycle of production and consumption. So that way, producer get affected by consumer and consumer get affected by producer. Therefore, they are called as cooperating processes. And to access them, we can have mechanisms of IPC that we discussed in the class. If you remember, the different IPC mechanism we said can be classified into two types, either shared memory or you can say message queues. So all that discussion you can have from the class notes which I dictated. So I am taking the discussion forward from there. to make you understand what is the need for synchronization, what is the meaning of synchronization in this environment. Okay, so I'm going to tell you now what is the meaning of synchronization. I give that by means of a simple example. Generally, when processes communicate, they should be synchronized. If they are not synchronized, it may lead to problems. And so we need to understand exactly what problems are going to arise when processes are communicating with each other and not synchronized. To start my discussion, I take a simple example. Like for example, you take the case of teacher and student. Now when the teacher is delivering a lecture in the class, students need to get, say, student is one process, teacher is another process. So students and teacher must be synchronized, meaning whatever teacher is teaching, student should be able to follow. Now if teacher is not following the student, unable to follow, problem will arise. So we say teacher and student must be synchronized as processes. Only then the communication is meaningful. Only then teacher can explain, student can understand. If there is a problem, then lack of synchronization will lead to issues. So that is the meaning of synchronization. Processes must be synchronized when they are communicating with each other. If they are not synchronized, that will lead to problems. So generally we write like this: lack of synchronization. Lack of synchronization in IPC communication, inter-process communication environment. In IPC environment, lack of synchronization in IPC environment leads to following problems. That means, say for example, if the teacher is teaching fast or teacher is not able to explain what the not give a proper explanation, then it will lead to problems. Am I right? So lack of synchronization in IPC environment may lead to following problem. What if teacher is speaking fast? Students will lose the data. If teacher is teaching something and students are unable to follow, then that will lead to some problem called inconsistency. So lack of synchronization in IPC environment may potentially lead to the following problems. So likewise, when processes communicate, they must be synchronized. If they are not synchronized, then essentially it will lead to problems. So what problems? Let us see. So what problems are going to arise due to lack of synchronization when processes communicate with each other? So the first problem which has been identified is called, let me write it here, data inconsistency. Data inconsistency. That means it is going to give you wrong results. That means teacher is telling something wrong, students will get wrong information. So that is called inconsistency. If not data inconsistency, sometimes it may lead to data loss. Data will get lost. Teacher is speaking very fast, students are unable to catch up. That data will be lost, loss of data. Third and last problem that may happen is a deadlock. Remember, we have studied in detail a chapter called deadlocks in the class. That means the processes get stuck. Neither of the parties are willing to coordinate and communicate, and the communication will come to a halt. So that's what we say, lack of synchronization in IPC environment may either lead to data inconsistency, may either lead to data loss, or perhaps it can lead to deadlocks. So that is why processes must be synchronized when they are communicating with each other. Lack of synchronization in IPC environment may potentially lead to these problems. So therefore, that is a need for synchronization. So what I wanted to tell you, tomorrow they may ask you simple 2-mark question. What is the need for synchronization? Answer is this. The need for synchronization is to ensure that processes in an IPC environment should not lead to any of these 3 problems. Or they may ask you indirectly, what are the problems that are going to be encountered due to lack of synchronization in IPC environment? What problems are going to arise due to lack of synchronization in IPC environment? These are the 3 problems which are going to happen. So please, this is a simple first topic to start. I hope from this discussion you might have understood what is the meaning of synchronization and what is the need for synchronization, what is going to happen if processes are not synchronized. So students, I just wanted to tell you that the main objective of this chapter is to learn about various synchronization mechanisms. What are the different ways of ensuring that the processes get synchronized in an IPC environment? Okay, so the main core objective of this chapter is to study various synchronization mechanisms. Okay, but before that we need to introduce some basic terminology which will help you understanding various synchronization mechanisms. So to understand that terminology, I will have to take a simple example, the example of producer-consumer problem that we discussed earlier. So by means of that, we can understand the terminology, and using the terminology later, we can introduce the topic of synchronization mechanism. Now that terminology which leads to defining a problem, the first term is called critical section. Critical section. I will write in short CS. Now understand. Critical section, I am writing the definition. I will take a different color. Critical section is that part of program or process that access shared resource, something which is shared. Otherwise, if there is no shared resource access, no shared resource, then that part of the program is called non-critical section. So generally, we divide the program into two parts, critical section and non-critical section. So critical section is that part of the program where we access shared resources, Critical section is that part of the program where we access shared resource, and non-critical section is that part of the program where we do not access any shared resource. So if I consider this as my process or program, we divide this into two parts. One is called critical and the other is called non-critical. Critical section, non-critical section. Like, to have more clarity of understanding, I will take example of producer-consumer problem which I had given you earlier. So remember, this was the producer-consumer problem which I have described. So by means of this, I will tell you what is critical and non-critical section here. So producer and consumer are processes. Buffer, this buffer, is it shareable between both producer and consumer? Yes. So this is critical section. Variable in is used only by producer, so therefore this is non-critical section. Variable out is used only by consumer, this is non-critical section. Variable count is updated by producer and consumer. Producer increments count, consumer decrement count. So count is critical section. I hope you got the point now. What is critical and what is non-critical? So critical section is that part of the program where shared resources are accessed and manipulated. So based on that, I can describe to you the general process structure based on this. So the general process structure for synchronization or IPC goes like this. General process structure. Now this may be in infinite loop, so therefore I may put it like infinite loop. Then process may have non-critical section structure, non-critical section. Producing data item, consuming data item, non-critical section. And then I will have critical section. Okay. Now this critical section is to be protected, by some from unauthorized access into it. That means no two processes may be present in critical section at the same time. So therefore, to guard or protect critical section, we need a synchronization mechanism, so that there is no inconsistency, there is no data loss. So to protect critical section, we must have this synchronization mechanism. I write in short SM. This synchronization mechanism will have two parts. One is called entry section, the other is called exit section. Okay. So using entry and exit section, typically it looks something like this. Just scrolling is a problem. Okay. So the general process structure will have two parts, non-critical and critical section. Critical section is that part where shared resources are accessed, and that has to be protected through a synchronization tool, synchronization mechanism. Synchronization mechanism having two parts, entry and exit section. So using that entry and exit section, how do process look like? So if I show in a general diagram form, this is critical section, this synchronization mechanism entry part, this is exit. This is called entry section and this is called exit section. So together these two define our synchronization mechanism. So here we'll have processes P1, P2, P3 like producer, consumer and others. All of them want to use critical section, but critical section is a crucial part. That is a very critical part. That is the word. That is why the word critical. It has to be used at a time by only one process. No two processes should be present in critical section at the same time. That will be enforced through entry section. So this is a general structure architecture of any synchronization mechanism. Okay. So this is called the general architecture. General architecture or model of critical section problem. So how are we going to ensure solving the problem of critical section? That will be done by means of synchronization mechanism, which should satisfy the three requirements. That means whenever you are implementing the synchronization mechanism, okay, for a given critical section problem, it should satisfy certain requirements. So what are those requirements to be fulfilled? Let us see the three requirements of synchronization mechanism. There are three requirements to be satisfied by any three requirements to be satisfied by any synchronization mechanism for its critical section. It's a very important topic. These three definitions you can find in the slides also, which I am going to share, but here I am going to make an understanding of it, so please pay attention. The first requirement is called, I'll take a different ink otherwise, mutual exclusion. Now the real definition you can see from slide. Here I am trying to make you understand. Mutual exclusion means no two processes must be in critical section at same time. Now what does this mean? From the diagram I can make you understand. Slightly up is a critical section diagram. So when multiple processes wants to enter critical section, the entry section should make sure that at a time only one process enter critical section. This is called mutual exclusion. No two processes P1, P2, P3 must be present in their critical section at the same time. At a time, the critical section should be in occupancy with only one process. Only one process, like in producer consumer. Only one process should be updating count. Both producer and consumer should not update count, otherwise the data will get inconsistent. Both producer and consumer should not be accessing buffer at the same time. At a time, if producer is placing the item in buffer, consumer should not be allowed and vice versa. That is called principle of mutual exclusion. Mutually exclusive. If one is accessing, other should not be allowed. Okay, that is called mutual exclusion. So whenever we design any critical section problem, it should satisfy the principle of mutual exclusion. Second, if mutual exclusion is guaranteed, it should satisfy a requirement called progress. No process in non-critical section should stop other process from entering critical section. Very simple. Let's say this critical section and let's say this is non-critical section. So if some process is here not interested in critical section and other fellow PJ want to enter critical section. So the fellow who is interested must be allowed. This fellow cannot prevent from this, this process to enter critical section. It's just like if somebody is not interested in critical section, it should not prevent the other process from entering critical section. It should not prohibit the other process from entering critical section. So no process running outside non-critical section means outside the critical section should prevent the other processes from entering critical section. This is called progress requirement. Okay. So every process should be allowed to have its uniform progress. No process running outside the critical section should prohibit the other process from entering critical section. Then the third requirement is called bounded waiting. Bounded waiting. You can see the definition, formal definition from the slide. I am going to explain the meaning of it here. I'll write the definition. No process has to wait forever to access its critical section. I'll explain diagrammatically. This critical section. Some process Pi and Pj are there. Okay. Now they want to share critical section independently. First Pi enter, then Pj, then Pi, Pj. Uniformly they should access. It should not happen that only Pi is allowed any number of times, multiple times, and Pj in that case will have to wait. So that means if I design my synchronization mechanism, no doubt it is guaranteeing mutual exclusion. But what is it doing? It is behaving unfairly. It is allowing Pi, again Pi, again Pi. It does not allow Pj. So then Pj will have a problem or not? That is called bounded waiting. There should be a bound limit on the waiting time of the process. Otherwise, if bounded waiting is not guaranteed, then it will lead to the problem of starvation. The other process Pj keeps on waiting. It is unfair. Everybody should be given a uniform chance. Uniform chance. Pi, then Pj, then Pi is bounded waiting. So these are the three requirements for synchronization mechanism. That means when I develop any synchronization mechanism, it must satisfy three requirements. What are they? Mutual exclusion. That means at a time only one process should be using critical section. Progress, process running outside the critical section should not prohibit the other process, should not prevent the other process from entering critical section. And bounded waiting, implying that no process has to wait forever to access its critical section. So with these three requirements, we are now ready to start our discussion on what we call synchronization mechanisms. So what are the various synchronization mechanisms? So as per your syllabus, essentially there are three things that we need to discuss. One is called Peterson solution, Peterson algorithm, Peterson algorithm. Second is called hardware synchronization, and third is called semaphores. So these three, if you follow, then I'm sure you can be in a position to attempt any question based on this. So these are the three general broad approaches of implementing the critical section problem, solving critical section problem, and these are called three standard synchronization mechanisms. So next video lecture we will talk about these mechanisms. Okay.